Today I'm going to talk about my mom. And I call this, I never knew my mom. I should have asked questions. Of course, I grew up with my mom. I knew her, but I didn't know her. And it's so sad now that she's gone, that she lived 90 years, and I probably spent less than an hour in 90 years asking her questions about her life. What it was like when she met my father, before she met my father, how did the early years go, and what does she think, and what does she feel, and what are her aspirations, and what does she believe about this or that. My mom was not outgoing that way. My wonderful wife, Ginger, is exactly the opposite. And I know so much more about Ginger than I ever did my mom, because she talks. And she talks about herself as I do myself. But my mom did not. My mom seldom used the word I. It was all about her children and then her husband. And I hesitate to say that because her husband is the big issue here. And it's the thing that turned my mom's life from heaven on earth to exactly the opposite. My father was an alcoholic. She cared deeply for him. She stayed with him. I never heard her raise her voice or even criticize my father. I guess she just thought that one day he would wake up cured. It's the most sad thing, because these two people obviously cared for each other deeply, and she would have given her life for him, I'm sure. As she would have any of her children. So, I don't know anything about my mom, except the daily ordeal I witnessed for the 18 years or so that I lived with her. Later on, we moved away, lived away for a long time, and then for about 15 years, we came back to the town where I was born, where Mom lived, and we got to spend 15 years with Mom. From the time she was 70, well, maybe we spent 20 years with her. But that's when I at least got to experience time with Mom where she wasn't working so hard anymore. She had her a house of her own. Her children were grown. She had grandchildren, and most of those were doing okay. There were incidents in our life even then, but Mom was in a much better place at that time. So I had the years from birth to 18 with my mom, and I had the years from, say, 70 to 90 with my mom. But in all of that time, It was always about me. It was about my sisters, my her grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and all of their problems. It was never about Mom. Now, I will say that the one thing we badgered her about and we talked to her about was to quit smoking. And she said, that's my one advice, that's my one vice, and I'm not going to give it up. And that was the end of it. Mom could make a decision and stick with it no matter what. And it's too bad that she made that decision, because I'm sure my mom would have lived several more really good years than she had. The smoking cost her her eyesight and no telling what other health issues before she finally passed away at 90. But she would have lived longer, I'm sure, and had a better final few years. So it's really about Mom's smoking and my dad's alcoholism. And the alcoholism just screwed up everything. My father wasn't just an alcoholic. He also had a gambling problem. And it may be that he had a couple of really bad gambling experiences that may have exacerbated the alcoholism. I know that he was successful in business. He was partners with another man in an insurance business that was doing great and is still around 70 years later with my dad's name on the company. But he was pushed out of the company when he spent some of the company's money on gambling. But even after that, every time he worked, he was successful. But slowly, but definitely, surely, he spent more and more time under the influence of alcohol. So, what about Mom? She worked as a paralegal. Mom was an extremely intelligent person. I found out at her funeral, the preacher or the person who performed the service did more research on Mom than I had done. And I found out that Mom was a decoder during the Second World War. She was stationed in Charleston, South Carolina in the Navy as a decoder, but she received training as a secretary in the Navy. She had a choice because she had such experience or education that she could actually have had either of two careers in the Navy, one secretarial and the other as musical. So the Navy would have let her play in the band for her term. And I think that's pretty cool, and I wish she had done that. But she wanted to be able to support herself, and I suppose she didn't think that music was going to do that. And come to find out, she spent many years as a secretary. She worked 2 jobs, many years, and as I found out from my sister last night, my older sister, sometimes she would work 6 days a week, get home 9 o'clock in the evening to get up and go to work again the next day. Now, that's telling me that my mom was carrying my family, my entire family, 3 children that never helped, and my dad, who was not only not help, what was a tremendous hindrance. So, I guess I do know a little bit about Mom, don't I? Well, I do know that from experience. And one of the questions I've been asking lately about my mom is, why did she hurt herself? Twice, I remember. One time she cut herself, and another time she had a severe burn. I think it had something to do with a faulty iron or something. But if you think about it, a person who's rushing all the time, working 2 jobs, trying to manage 3 children, young children, and a husband who's not going to work because he's drunk. That's a life that is awful. It's so sad, and it could have been so much better. All she needed was a little help. Just a little help. Come on. So, when the last year of Mom's life, she said something interesting. Ginger is not shy about asking questions. I did not ask questions, but Ginger asked, well, how did you meet your husband? How did you meet Richard Sr.? And at that time, Mom was in a nursing home, a hospice situation. She was very clear and alert, but the time was running out. But when Ginger asked that question, a big smile came over her face. And she said, I was friends with his, well, apparently there were a lot of these people living in the same house. There was my dad, there was his mother, and I guess maybe his sister or somebody else like that. But there was a female that my mom knew that they went to the same church with. So Mom was invited over to the house, and when she saw my father, oh gosh, I hate this. I wish I could go back in time and have Mom do something else that day. But when she saw my father, she said in her mind, that's for me. And she said that, and when she told us that that's what she said, big smile came up over her face, and you know that she loved him his whole life, and she completely forgot about all the misery he had caused her. That's for me. It's funny. After she passed away, several years later, we were watching a movie, and it's called State Fair. It came out in 1945, which is the year that Mom got married. And in that movie, there's a song called That's For Me. And here are the lyrics, or some of them. I saw you standing in the sun, and you were something to see. I know what I like, and I liked what I saw. And I said to myself, that's for me. So last night, I decided to do a little research on my mom's early life. What I know is that when she was 8 years old, her mother died. And apparently soon after that, my mom and her 2 brothers were sent off to orphan school or other boarding schools. They left my grandfather. Eventually, and I think it was quite a while later, my grandfather remarried. But the children were forevermore away from his care. And they had to be raised by themselves. My sister Peggy last night informed me that a church in Flemingsburg, Kentucky actually paid for my mom's care and her two brothers in the schools that they lived in. They were full-time residents in the Kentucky Female Orphan School that Mom ended up in. She was one of 4 girls who lived there full-time. Everybody else lived there just during the school year. So it was similar to a boarding school. I had thought it was an orphanage because it's called the Kentucky Female Orphan School. But that institution had been started way back in the 1800s, and times had changed, I guess. In fact, by the time Mom graduated in 1942, the school, it was no longer called an orphan school. They called it something else for a high school and also a college. But anyway, yesterday I knew nothing. Today I know a lot more. The idea occurred to me, Midway. Mom attended Midway. Well, I Google searched Midway, and I found a town in Kentucky, and I found the Kentucky Female Orphan School. I found pictures galore of the orphan school. I found information about Midway College, and now it's Midway University. But I saw all these old buildings. I said, this is where my mom grew up. She lived here. And then I started looking back over the old pictures, and I saw some graduation pictures. And I looked very carefully at everybody in the graduation pictures. No, Mom. Finally, I found one. Oh, there was a pretty young lady with a big smile, bright eyes. Her black gown, black cap and gown. We have the ability these days on photos to focus in on it. And her gown came down over her hands longer than others, and you'd look at these girls, and some of them, they would be up here, some down there. And this pretty young lady, her gown had little wrinkles, a little dirty here or there. I said, no, this ain't my mom. She's pretty. That was in the graduating class in 1945. So I looked and looked, and I looked through 1944, 1943. And when I found 1942, they were all wearing white cap and gowns. And it was a circle here with a bunch of girls up here, and then there were 3 or 4 seated. And when I saw that picture, I did not have to look twice. I saw my mom. And she was sitting on the end of the bench. And she was the first one there. Then there were about 3 girls, and then there were all these other girls standing around, and there was my mom. She said there were 4 of them that lived there year-round. Maybe those were the ones that lived year-round, got the prime seat. Well, I like to think it's the prime one anyhow. Yep, that was my mom. She wasn't the prettiest girl there, but she was cute. I guess she was 18. Her hair stuck out, and it was my mom. She had a smile on her face. Some of the girls were looking here or there. Mom was looking straight ahead and smiling, like I'm sure she knew how to do. So that was 1942. I think she may have attended a year of college there, since the place was now going to be a college as well. I know that she was offered a college scholarship, full college scholarship, but she couldn't accept the scholarship because she didn't have her own flute. The requirement was you had to have your own flute. So that's so ridiculous. That's why I keep buying ukuleles, I guess. So anyway, somehow she enlisted in the Navy, sent to Charleston, and she ran into the perfect storm, my dad, one day. And she said, "That's for me."